What's the fastest way you've seen a CEO ruin a company? A construction company near me was pulling $100 to $200 million in revenue every year and growing constantly. Then the owner died and his frat bro fail son was handed the reins. Within a month, a quarter of the employees had either been fired or quit. After 4 months, the rental companies were showing up and reaping lifts and cranes carried X in the middle of the day because they weren't being paid. Almost 3/4 of the employees had quit by this point because paychecks kept bouncing. Before 6 months had passed, what was left was sold for a pittance to another company that just wanted what was left of the maintenance contracts. So like 6 months to bomb the company he'd been groomed to take over since he was a teenager to rubble and piss on the ashes. That's impressive. How does one manage to go from somewhere north of $10 mail a month to having your paychecks bounce in a month? All it takes is squandering 1 month's revenue on a new house. Most companies of that size would never recover from the loss of cash flow. When the CEO of EA moved to being the CEO of Unity, and then immediately shoot himself in the foot with a 12 gauge by changing Unity's publishing policies and causing most devs to drop the engine if he wasn't fired. Wait, he was the CEO of EA before? This explains everything. He was previously famous for saying something to the effect of, "We should be charging microtransactions for reloads in FPS games." Just saw on the news a Texas logistics company CFO was sentenced to 51 months in prison for wire fraud for transferring company funds to his bank account and destroying the company, causing it to shut down and lay everyone off. The kicker is, he was convicted of the same felony in 1994, so second time he'd done it. I used to work at a company that had a project manager who would just write purchase orders to a fake company that was himself. The higher-ups didn't check the POs and details, and he just pocketed the money. The best part is the police were called, but whatever he did wasn't technically illegal because he rendered this service. Whoever decided no Norp on Tumblr, want it or not, Tumblr was a center point for artists of all kinds, and lots would do kinky stuff. And when they went for it, they went hard. Like a bot would go through and ban you if it found something a little too sexy. Traffic on Tumblr dropped by like 50% in a month. Yahoo! It was Yahoo! Also, the Norp detection bot was wildly inaccurate. It flagged a photo of the moon as a nipple. The moon looked extra slutty that night, and you know it. Randall Stevenson, AT&T. He bought DirecTV and Warner Brothers, including DC Comics, CNN, HBO, and so on, for only $175 billion between 2015 and 2018. When everyone was moving to stream services, he thought it was a good idea to buy a cable company that was losing customers by millions and a struggling media company. Me and thousands of people lost their job because of it, including Randall, with a $64 million retirement package. What kills me about this is that he and AT&T were positioned to bundle everything together for customers at an inexpensive rate. Once they went dishless with DirecTV, they could have dominated the market by making it super affordable. And yet, every year, they raised prices to make up for the loss of customers, which, in turn, made more people cancel. The worst part was, while they were actively destroying DirecTV, Warner Bros. And HBO, they just ignored the entire cell phone division and let AT&T become a shell of a respected company. Don't forget the T-Mobile deal. He wrote in the tentative agreement that, if the DOJ didn't approve the deal, for reasons of cellular monopolizing, AT&T would pay T-Mobile $3 billion. $3 billion! Guess what? DOJ said hell no. If I cost the company $3 billion to a direct competitor or just, at all, that company's board would have me, not just fired, but assassinated. Called his own products crap to the media, and his products were jewelry, won't even last as long as a prawn sandwich. Cautionary Tales did a podcast about this. What I found interesting is that they pointed out that it could be seen as more of a shitty viral journalism thing. I need to listen to it again. But IRC the speech also continued along the lines of, why shouldn't the average working class person also have a decanter, and wear jewelry, etc. But the media went along with his and his audience's guffawing at poor people not being able to afford expensive stuff instead. After the first disastrous speech, he was invited onto Wogan, which was kind of the equivalent of the Late Show. And on that show he said his products were total crap. I watched it at the time, and while Wogan was sorta riling him a little, it was very soft. Ratner coming out with total crap was down to him and him only. That Wogan interview is what did for him. A lot of people were on his side, especially people who'd bought wedding or engagement rings from Ratner's. And then he went on TV and just said, "They're crap." There was a Ratner's where I lived, next to the market where I had a morning job as a young kid, and people were returning rings to Ratner's and demanding money back on payment plans bought on hock. Queues of engaged and recently married couples hoping they'd be able to get a bit of money back, and panicked staff shutting the doors and pulling down the security shutters because they had no idea what to do, because nobody had been prepared for Gerald Ratner saying what he said. They thought he was selling them gold-coated tin instead of real gold. It was viral journalism, but it was started by him trying to dial it back, not by the first interview. Sears paid Amazon to make their website. Amazon finishes. Sears execs say it's pointless. Internet is a fad. They give their blessings to Amazon to use the website. How's Sears doing? Took a job at a tech startup in the 90s with the promise of fast growth and opportunity. Things really took off in the second year, and we opened up several more branches in different states while I was promoted to production manager. The company hired a young CEO who was only a couple of years older than me. Sometimes he would stay at our location for a couple of weeks at a time, and he started driving really nice sports cars to work. When he would leave to other cities, he would leave his cars in the parking lot of our branch. There were Corvettes, Porsches, Autos, and more. After the second year of promising growth, the business suddenly stopped while the owners visited and yelled at the entire crew for not managing our money, and told us that they were in debt by over $1 million. We were all given the task of dismantling the equipment and preparing it to be sold and shipped before being let go. On our last day, when the building was empty, we all noticed that the row of sports cars was still there, and the owner had placed for sale signs on them. It turned out that they were all bought as company vehicles, and the CEO had done this at each business location. We all still were yelled at in a furious rage by the CEO and owner for not being responsible people. Wait, CEO squandered company money, and when they got into debt, the CEO and owner are yelling at the workers? I'm surprised that guy didn't walk out with a letter opener decorating his throat. I'm surprised he didn't end up being hired as the new CEO for Dell with an even bigger salary, or something like that. Bob Chapek's takeover of Disney in 2019. He immediately hired finance buddies into creative positions, prioritized making money via their parks, and had a quantity over quality approach with their movies. He had a hand green-lighting an insane amount of projects which lead to overworked staff, bad quality production, and as a result, disliked projects and failing entertainment properties, mainly Marvel. Creative industries are destroyed when one of two sets of people take over, marketing or finance. One doesn't know how to make good product, the other doesn't care. In the late 90s, people were goofing on Disney for their crap straight to VHS sequels. I'm not sure why people are rewriting history so that Disney was this amazing creative company until 5 years ago. Ed Lampert is a billionaire businessman who took charge of Sears Holdings, the company behind those iconic Sears stores. It's so frustrating to see how his time at the helm has turned into a complete disaster. When Lampert merged Sears with Kmart back in 2003, it raised so many eyebrows. Seriously, who thought that was a good idea? Over time, it became painfully clear that it wasn't. The sheer number of store closures is mind-boggling. Hundreds of locations shutting down and thousands of employees losing their jobs. It's heartbreaking to think about all those workers who were left high and dry. Financially, Sears has been on a downward spiral. The continuous losses led to the company filing for bankruptcy in 2018. The shareholders lost around $9.4 billion. That's a staggering amount. It's hard to believe how badly things went under his watch. And then there's the cherry on top. Sears even had to sue Lampert, accusing him of stealing billions from the company. Can you believe that? It's outrageous. It feels like he prioritized his own interests over everything else, leaving the company and its employees in ruins. Calling his actions criminal doesn't even begin to capture how wrong it all feels. It's just infuriating to see someone wield so much power and use it so irresponsibly. You should look up his kidnapping story. Fascinating. In January 2003, Eddie Lampert was abducted from his Greenwich, Connecticut office parking lot by 4 men, including ex-Marine Ronaldo Rose. They held him captive in a nearby hotel room, claiming they had been hired to kill him for $1 million but would release him for a ransom. Lampert persuaded his captors to let him order a pizza, and gave them his credit card to pay for it. This allowed authorities to trace and capture his kidnappers. These guys had a $1 mail business going and they blew it on a pizza. You can convince a Marine to do a lot in exchange for pizza. As a photographer who started at the peak of Flickr, FUCK Marissa Meyer. She destroyed Flickr. Never used Flickr, what did she do? Killed Pro subscription, per attempt at modernizing the interface, mandatory Yahoo accounts, removed images if you didn't pay, after being back Pro subs, and some other shit that by the time Instagram arrived it was too late to win back photographers. For a more serious example, there's the whole thing with US Firearms Company and the Zip 22. US Firearms Company was a relatively small gun manufacturer. They were certainly never on the same scale as the likes of Colt or FN, but they were reasonably successful, and did find a niche for making what were and still are considered very high-quality reproductions of the Colt single-action Army revolver. And then for some inexplicable reason, the CEO decided to toss it all away in favor of his brainchild, the Zip 22, a pistol that is generally considered to be one of the worst firearms ever made. Not only is it an extremely unreliable gun that's extremely prone to jamming, even if the thing works perfectly, the Zip 22 is extremely awkward to hold from an ergonomics perspective, and on top of that, it's also one of the most blatantly unsafe firearms ever made, since cocking the gun requires the user to place their finger directly in front of the barrel. The Zip 22 was such an absolute disaster of a firearm that just a year after it had been released, the company was forced to shut down in its entirety. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.